Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Town Hall with the Honorable Tim Houston, Premier of Nova Scotia. My name is Marla McGuinness, and I'll be your moderator this evening. It's been a few months since our last Town Hall, so before we begin, I'll share a quick rundown as to how these typically work. Earlier this evening, several Nova Scotians received an invitation to join tonight's conversation by phone. Those who choose to participate can ask their questions, share a thought, an idea, concerns, feedback directly with the Premier tonight. If you're participating by phone and you would like to ask a question, you can hit *3 now to be added to the queue. We're also broadcasting live on the Nova Scotia Government Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Those viewers will also have the chance to participate as well. If you're watching us online, you can email your question to nstownhall@novascotia.ca. We have about an hour together, and these town halls typically fly by, so we'll try our best to get to as many of you as we can. Now, before I turn it over to the Premier, I want to share one last thought with you. Yesterday, I heard someone say, change can't happen unless someone starts a conversation. And I thought, how applicable is that to tonight? So if you're sitting on your phone right now, debating, sharing your thoughts or ideas for change, I encourage you to start the conversation this evening. Our ears are wide open. And as a reminder, if you want to start that conversation now, you can do so by hitting *3. Now, while we wait for questions to come in, Premier, do you have any opening thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to chatting with you tonight and taking your questions. So, as we noted, press *3 if you called on the phone. If you're on the phone, press *3 if you'd like to ask a question. If you're on YouTube watching along, you can email your questions in. But I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight. It's been a busy few weeks here in Nova Scotia for sure. This week, as chair of the Council of the Federation, that's the Premier's table. We had premiers from across the country here in Nova Scotia. I was so happy to host the premiers here in Halifax for 2 days of meetings where we talked about housing, affordability, and we also had a health summit at our Health Innovation Lab. It was a great discussion. It's always good to get together with the premiers and hear what's happening across the province, some of the solutions that they have in their jurisdictions. At the Health Innovation Hub at the Health Summit, we learned about best practices and health innovations from across the country, what's happening in different provinces, different territories, and what maybe we can use here to speed things along in our journey for fixing our healthcare system. At the same time, as we were hosting the premiers, we've been busy in the legislature for a few weeks now, getting bills passed that will help people across Nova Scotia, across the entire province. We have bills that would help speed up housing by capping fees that are being charged and limiting some of the red tape that is on development to get housing built, quicker. We need more housing and we need it faster. We had a piece of legislation that would it's designed to update the MOU between the province and the municipalities. That's the memorandum of understanding that governs the relationship between the province and the municipalities. Under this piece of legislation, $50 million a year would go into the hands of municipalities across the province so that they can put it to work in their municipality on what is needed for their citizens based on their knowledge from being right there, living in their communities. It could be infrastructure like water, it could be roads, it could be other areas that are concerned to the residents of a municipality, but the province is stepping up to support municipalities across the province. We also have a bill that would allow the province of Nova Scotia to join lawsuits against the major opioid manufacturing companies to recover some fees and money for the damage that they have caused to families across the province and across the country. Another bill that's before the legislature establishes universal mental health care. That's something that we talked about in our campaign. I'm so proud of the work that Minister Comer, the Minister of Addictions and Mental Health, is doing to support Nova Scotians. This bill is kind of the first step on that journey towards universal mental health care. It will mean that every Nova Scotian can have access to mental health services regardless of their insurance or financial status. This is a really important piece of legislation. And those are just a few examples. Healthcare is always top of mind for our government. My biggest focus has always been fixing the healthcare system, making sure you can access the healthcare you need when you need it. Our national Medicare system is in trouble. It's on the ropes. But I believe in the public system. I believe it can be saved. And with the incredible team at the Department of Health and Wellness, with the incredible team at the Nova Scotia Health Authority, we are leading the way in saving Medicare and fixing healthcare. At the most recent healthcare summit, where I gathered healthcare leaders from across the province, from the unions, from the universities, from the regulatory bodies and registers. We got together, I think, 4 times now for a discussion about what's possible, and to make sure everyone is doing what they possibly can. I have to tell you, the energy in the room, the go like heck attitude, it was absolutely amazing. And many of those healthcare leaders that were in attendance told me that they've, as they attended their own recent national conferences and events, they were beaming with pride as they talked to their colleagues from across the country because of what's happening here in Nova Scotia. Their colleagues were coming up to them and saying, wow, we saw what's happening in Nova Scotia. How are you doing that? They were beaming with pride. Their national peers are recognizing that Nova Scotia is leading the way. And the leaders, and just like Nova Scotians, stop me and tell me, they told me that the Patient Access to Care Act that we passed last session of the legislature, it's already making a difference in recruiting qualified healthcare professionals to Nova Scotia. They told me that the Atlantic Physicians Registry, it's making a difference. They tell me that the investments that our government is making in long-term care, the overall commitment and focus of our government is making a difference. They told me that the pharmacy clinics across the province, where people can go in and get help from a pharmacist, some testing, some treatment for common illnesses, already making a difference, as well as the support that pharmacies are providing for people with chronic conditions. It's making a difference. These clinics are making a difference. And I'm also hearing from you, from patients, from people using the healthcare system. I'm hearing from Nova Scotians. And every day they're telling me that the primary care clinics are working for them. They're telling me that the virtual care, it's working for them. We're seeing hundreds of Nova Scotians accessing virtual care every single day. In fact, the CBC recently ran a story that talked about the number of Nova Scotians on the Need a Family Practice list, but they asked the question, can virtual care help? And in that story, there was one couple who described virtual care, their access to virtual care, as a lifeline. Virtual care is making a difference. These are the things that Nova Scotians are telling me. But you're also telling me, keep going. You elected us to fix healthcare, and we're chipping away one solution at a time. But we know there's work to be done. But that's one of the reasons why, just this last week, we launched Your Health NS. This is an app that basically people ask me all the time, how do I access care? Where do I get the care I need? Well, right now in Nova Scotia, you can download the app on your phones, and it will start to walk you through some of the options that you have. It's on us as government to not only give people access points. We've created all kinds of new access points to the system, but it's on us to make sure that you know what those access points are. Because every day I find myself sharing information about the mobile clinics, sharing information about the walk-in clinics, and making sure that people know about them. This summer I met a man who happily told me how pleased he was that his daughter was in and out of the IWK in 3 hours. When I asked what the diagnosis was, he said strep throat. I said, did you know you could have gone to the local pharmacy and probably been out in 10 minutes? He had no idea. Navigating the healthcare system can be very complex. So we're putting that virtual care, we're putting the information about the access points, we're putting so much more right in the hands of the patient through this app. And let me show you how. We'll play a quick video for you.
There are now more ways to find healthcare options and information with Your Health NS. Download the Your Health NS app to your phone or visit yourhealthns.ca. From the home screen, you'll find quick links to different healthcare services and information. You can schedule COVID and flu vaccines, book blood collection, x-rays, or EKGs, check emergency department wait times, access your immunization records, and find health services such as primary care, pharmacies, urgent care, and more. You can customize your home screen by tapping Edit on the right-hand side of your screen. Here you'll see a list of records, resources, self-help topics, and services you can add to your home screen. Your Health NS can also connect you with help when you need it. The Get Care chat tool will ask you questions about your health and help identify the best services and more reliable information. Your Health NS, helping you find the care you need when you need it. More healthcare, faster. Your Health NS. Get it where you get your apps.
So this app is available right here, right now. You can take out your phone right now and go wherever you download your apps and get the Your Health NS app. You can use it to help access the care, or you can use it to help find the care that a loved one needs by putting in different locations. This app will walk you through the options and make sure you get the most appropriate care, no matter where you're at in the province, whether you're in your home, whether you're at work, at the rink, at dance practice. This tool can help guide you. Your Health NS is a one-stop shop for healthcare information and services. You can also book blood tests, x-rays, EKGs, and vaccination appointments. Mental health and addictions and other health and wellness resources are available too. There's more services that will be added in the future, but Your Health NS includes a chat tool that gives you access to care navigators who can help you find the care you need when you need it, whether that's in a pharmacy. You can book an appointment right over the app to go through some of the pharmacies, or whether it's in the mobile clinic that happens to be down the street. You can even see a healthcare provider over your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop. And we have more exciting news too. With the launch of the app, virtual care is now available to those on the Anita Family Practice Registry. Virtual care was always available for those that run Anita Family Practice Registry, but we've expanded virtual care so that even Nova Scotians with a primary care provider can receive up to 2 virtual care appointments every year. So even if you have a family provider, you can still access a couple times a year through virtual care. It'll help you get it a little quicker, maybe. So you can access it all right through the Your Health NS app, and it's just a new way to do it. So those of you on the Anita Family Practice list, you'll continue to have free access to virtual care all year round. But now we have a new convenient way to access it. One app, any day, any time. So if you have a question about how do I access care or can I book appointment, the answer in Nova Scotia now is there's an app for that. So thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm looking forward to hear from you, your questions, your feedback, your concerns. So I'm happy to take any questions. If you want to ask a question, press *3 and we'll put you in the queue to ask a question. But let's hear from you now.
Thanks, Premier. So it looks like Nova Scotians are going to keep you busy tonight. We've got questions pouring in from all across the province. We're going to start here in Halifax with Flora. Flora wants to talk about some of the tents she's been seeing in this city. Flora, go ahead with your question now.
Hi. My question is, are you going to be able to help the seniors through the winter with the heating oil and groceries, and also the homeless in the tent cities?
Yeah, thanks, Flora. These are important questions for sure. So on the first part, we have in Nova Scotia the Seniors Care Grant. That's a pretty innovative support that we have for seniors here in Nova Scotia. So that will be available. That's an application-based program. So the Seniors Care Grant is there to support seniors. There's also the home heating rebate program available to seniors and other Nova Scotians. So there's a couple tools right there specifically that can help with, we know this winter it's as many people are dreading the heating bills that are coming this winter. On the homelessness issue, I mean, this is a a kind of a heartbreaking situation when you see so many people that are finding themselves underhoused, living rough, homeless. These are really tough situations. So, as a province, there's a couple things. First off, for those that have a place to live, are paying rent but finding it a little tough. We've added almost 3,000 more rent supplements. More people are receiving the rent supplement that's available to Nova Scotians through the province. So the rental supplement program can help people that are finding it really tough. But in general, I mean, we've invested more than $18 million to support people experiencing homelessness or living rough. We're doing that through new shelters. We're doing that through supportive housing for people who need a little bit of extra support. There's 417 new supportive housing units just that we've added just in the past 2 years. The minister for community services has announced a program where they're trying to secure and build some pallet shelters and tiny homes. These are innovative programs that we think we can get off the ground pretty quick to help people, and building more housing across the province is, the solution to the housing crisis is more housing. So a series of initiatives on that. We know in terms of the building homes thing, I hear a lot that the labor's not there. We don't have the tradespeople. That was the thinking behind the MOST program, the More Opportunities for Skilled Trades, where people who are working in the skilled trades that are under 30 years old get a pretty significant income tax break to try and encourage people to get into the trades and apply that trade right here in Nova Scotia. And finally, I guess the last thing that I would say is we've invested as a government almost $100 million to bring in more skilled trades into the province, and that will benefit us going forward. But you're absolutely right. I mean, seeing the tents and the homelessness and the people living rough, it's a heartbreaking thing. Nobody wants to see that, so we're really focused on trying to support those people and partner with municipalities, partner with nonprofit organizations, and really partner with anyone who wants to help be part of the solution. But thank you, Flora, for raising those two important issues.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we're going to chat a little bit more about healthcare and specifically wait lists. So we've got Cynthia on the line from Eastern Passage. Go ahead, Cynthia, with your question.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Premier. My question is, I know you guys have been doing great, working hard to try and improve the healthcare system. But one of the things, my suggestion, would be nice also for us seniors, if you're trying to help us live better lives, you can get rid of the cost of having to pay for a shingles shot, so you don't have to get, so we are less susceptible to get shingles. That would be very nice.
Well,
I know a lot of people that are suffering with still the effects of shingles that are seniors because they couldn't afford to get the shots. So if the healthcare, you're trying to help us to pay $200 to $300 on fixed incomes, us seniors, most of us can't do that. Your doctors are willing to give them to you, but if I had to refuse my doctor last week because I couldn't just take $200 to $300 to go get a needle, and I'm sure there's thousands of us seniors out there that can't. So that would be very appreciative if you would work on something like you're telling us we need this to protect ourselves. But we can't protect ourselves if there's a big cost on everything that we need to protect ourselves.
Yeah,
that would be lovely.
Yeah, no, thank you, Cynthia. You're absolutely right. I mean, the cost of living that Nova Scotians and Canadians, but certainly seniors are experiencing is really tough. There's no question about that. And we're constantly looking at what we can do through seniors pharmacare. We've kind of try to hold the line on the fees on seniors pharmacare. But your specific idea about the shingles vaccine, it's an interesting idea for sure. It's certainly one we do talk a lot about. We recently did begin to cover the high dose flu shots for seniors. But we're always looking for additional ways to support, and this is one that I will say has been discussed around our caucus table as something that our members from across the province are hearing, and I'll certainly take that back to the minister and say that you've kind of reiterated here from me tonight. You make a good point, and I'm going to take that one to the minister and see what's possible. But it's certainly an interesting idea for sure. I appreciate you raising it tonight.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, Cynthia. Next, we're going to talk about power and the Bay of Fundy a little bit. So we're going to move now to Douglas McKay from Middle Musquodoboit. Douglas, go ahead with your question.
Yes, my question, Mr. Premier, is like the tides in the Bay of Fundy go out in and out twice a day, and we want to get off of coal and oil. Why are we not harnessing that power in the Bay of Fundy? If you think of like an old riverboat that had a paddle wheel, why can't we take and put those types of paddle wheels on a barge, anchor the barge in the river, in the Bay of Fundy, and generate power from it? It wouldn't have to be that expensive an idea, I don't think. Another thing while I'm talking to you, if our roads had to measure up to a safety inspection the same as we do when we take our vehicle in to get inspected, how many roads would have rejection stickers on them today? Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. And look, the Bay of Fundy is such an incredible natural asset that we have in this province. We're blessed with assets, particularly for energy production. We have remarkable wind speeds, onshore wind speeds and offshore wind speeds, incredible wind speeds, world-class wind speeds, and they blow a lot. The wind blows a lot here, so the high speeds, high power, and they're consistent. So the potential for wind energy in this province is very, very significant. So we're working with the federal government to try and move forward on that as well. But the Bay of Fundy, wow, wouldn't every other jurisdiction in the world just love to have something like the Bay of Fundy sitting right there? It's just like clockwork, as you say, twice a day. And if you took the power of every river in the world and added them together, you may come close to the power of the Bay of Fundy at a changing of the tides. It is absolutely remarkable. And maybe you're right. Maybe we're overthinking it, because there's been a couple attempts to harness that power, and it's too powerful. A lot of time and money was invested to create a turbine that was bolted to the bottom, to the ocean floor in there, and it was destroyed in minutes at the changing of the tide. The tide is so strong that the boulders that it pushes around just destroyed. Then they tried again a second time, and it was destroyed in minutes as well. And I think ultimately you're right. It will be harnessed by floating devices. Maybe as simple as a barge with a wheel underneath it, but maybe that concept a little bit more sophisticated. But I think you're right, that it will be some kind of floating mechanism. The technology is coming, and we had Sustainable Marine, which was had some pilot test projects going on. They had to leave and shut down. They had to, federal regulations really caused them to shut down that project and leave. So we're trying to work with the federal government on common sense regulations. We'll work with, fishermen and local stakeholders. But ultimately, in the fullness of time, harnessing the Bay of Fundy can change the economy of this province in a very significant way. It can produce the green hydrogen. It can produce the green energy that the world is looking for right there at the Bay of Fundy, and we can be leaders. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. It is one that is never far from my mind and from the minister's mind. So I do appreciate the nudge, and I do appreciate the suggestion of almost like I would paraphrase you to say, don't overthink it. Just get it done. So I do appreciate that common sense approach. And on roads, we have a lot of roads, and I agree. There's maintenance that's required there, and we need to maintain our roads for the safety of Nova Scotians. We have had in the 2 years since I've been since I've had the privilege to be premier, since we've been in government, we've invested almost $500 million in roads, including significant investments in gravel roads. So we know there's they say all politics is local, and there's nothing more local than the road you drive every single day. So we certainly understand the impact that bad roads can have on a people's life and even their mental health. But so the $500 million investment in roads and infrastructure, that's a big number. We'll continue to make those investments. There is something called the the Rural Impact Mitigation Program for rural roads and routes, and that's a program that we initially doubled when we first came into government, and then we added more in our second budget. It's up to $36 million this year, and I'm sure when the budget comes down, there'll be more again. So I hear you on the roads, and I hear I understand the need to invest in them, but those are two really important questions, and I really appreciate you for raising them tonight.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, Douglas. We've had a lot of great questions so far tonight, but there's lots of time for more. So if you're wanting to ask your question, share an idea, feedback, concerns, anything like that, please hit *3 now, and you can get added to the queue as well. Next, we'll go to Phyllis. Phyllis wants to talk about seniors and access to healthcare. Go ahead, Phyllis.
Yes, Premier. I find it very difficult finding a place to find a doctor to take care of me, and especially going for like our flu needles. We get a flu needle in Mahone Bay or Hammonds Plains or Bridgewater or Chester, but all the seniors, it doesn't matter whether you're a senior and have a car or not, you still have to travel. If you can get an appointment in Mahone Bay, you have to go to Mahone Bay. You can't be in Chester. And it just seems that there should be something more simple.
Thank you, Phyllis. And access to care, close to where you're at is really important for sure, and access to consistent care and quality care. I mean, these are things we focus on. Can I ask you a question, Phyllis? Are you good with doing a virtual care over a telephone or using technology much? Is that an option? Is that an option for you, or? Okay, so we lost Phyllis. Okay, so I guess what I would say is a couple things. So we have the pharmacy program, the pharmacy clinics. There's thousands of people that have been able to go to a local pharmacy to get a diagnosis or to get a treatment or to get, as Phyllis mentioned, a flu shot or COVID vaccination or some of these things. So we'll continue to, those pharmacy clinics, that program has been incredibly successful. It's been written about nationally. I saw an article that said that was entitled "The Nova Scotia, the Little Province That Could and Did," and the whole thing was focused on the success of the pharmacy program. So there tends to be more pharmacies around the province in more communities, so they're great access points. We'll continue to expand that program. And the reason I was curious about Phyllis with the virtual care for Phyllis is because virtual care. It works for a lot of things. It's just fine. It's just perfect for a lot of things. But there are other times through the virtual care system where somebody uses virtual care, talks to a live healthcare professional, doctor, nurse practitioner, whatever the case may be, and that healthcare professional decides, I really want you to see somebody. And through our virtual care system, the way it's set up in this province, that person can be directed to see somebody in person if needed. And I think the most recent statistics I saw said that that's 20% of the time. So 20% of the time, somewhere in that range, that somebody uses virtual care, the healthcare professional, the doctor, does say, I want you to see somebody, and they can get them into one of our clinics very quickly within days. So the virtual care also has an in-person aspect when it's necessary. So I want you to know that is an access point for sure. And with the app, we can direct you to the closest pharmacy where you're at to maybe get one of these shots and one of these other services. But I also want to go back to something I talked about off the top of the app. For those that have access to apps, to download apps, the Your Health NS app. It was launched on November 1st, and since it was launched on November 1st, more than 70,000 people have downloaded the app and used it to direct themselves to care, and 3,000 people have used it to access virtual care just since it was launched. So it's another tool, it's another step along the way that will help people get directed to the most efficient, effective care, the closest care to them. As Phyllis was mentioning, have it jump around to different communities. So the app can help them really zero in on what's possible. But it's an important question, Phyllis, and we know that access, convenient access, is critical, and we'll continue to focus on that.
Okay, thank you, Premier. We're going to take our conversation up to Cape Breton now. We've got Lynn in Cape Breton. She wants to talk about a topic, the Premier, I know you're very passionate about, and that's bringing our doctors home to Nova Scotia. Go ahead, Lynn, with your question.
Hi, Mr. Houston. It's really great to talk to you, and I'm a big fan. I know you're working really hard. And I was watching TV, and I'm watching these doctors that have their degree, but because of red tape, they can't come back home. And I don't understand that part. It just doesn't make any sense to me. If we have people that want to come home and they've had their training somewhere else out of the country, then they should be able to come back.
Thank you, Lynn. And this is, what they say, that common sense ain't that common anymore. And this is definitely something that has bothered me for quite some time. And I couldn't see the common sense in people that are properly trained and qualified, not having a clear path to Nova Scotia, especially when they have a connection here and they want to be in our community. So this was the thinking behind the Patient Access to Care Act. This is a piece of legislation that passed last year in our legislature, and it does a couple of things, but one of the things it does is common sense credentialing. So it starts to look at, doctors. So a doctor in the United States, in good standing with their, licensing body and regulatory body, good enough for the United States, good enough for Nova Scotia. A doctor, even it's been kind of silly, like even mobility across the country, it's been kind of difficult. Doctor, good enough for Ontario, good enough for Nova Scotia. United Kingdom, good enough for us, right? So this Patient Access to Care Act is really significant. It was I believe that we'll look back and think that really changed healthcare, not only in Nova Scotia, but really in Canada, because other provinces are really focusing on that. And, I always use the example that I'm a chartered accountant. I qualified as a chartered accountant in 1995. Don't ask me to write that exam now, right? But we can't make it difficult for people, for doctors and to move around if they're properly qualified. So the Patient Access to Care Act is about common sense credentialing. It's about getting rid of some of that unnecessary red tape, and it's about having the ability for people who want to be here to come here in a straightforward way. So it's working. I have to say that the Nurses College really embraced this, and they identified certain jurisdictions around the world that, if you're a registered nurse in certain jurisdictions, the Philippines was one, parts of India were other ones, I think Australia, New Zealand, United States, United Kingdom, other places. If you're there and you're in good standing, then we would accept that in Nova Scotia. And since we passed that act, I think they received somewhere in the range of 18,000 applications of nurses that want to come to Nova Scotia. So the College of Physicians, they're the ones who license doctors in Nova Scotia. They're also coming on board now and starting to try to look at which jurisdictions could we accept experience and training from. We never want to lower the standard of care. We want good doctors here. But we have to be realistic on looking when we look at their credentials and how many tests do we want to make them right and how much So we want good doctors, but we have to have common sense in how we assess that. And so the Patient Access to Care Act is helping for sure. It is making a difference in some aspects of healthcare already, and it will make a difference in others as we move forward. But I absolutely agree with you. There's countless stories of Nova Scotians who went away to medical school or are working somewhere in the United States or working somewhere else, would love to come home and be close to their family. And the Patient Access to Care Act has really got their interest and curiosity and will give them a pathway that makes sense. So it's a significant piece of legislation. So I'm really optimistic about it. But I share your concern. We need qualified doctors here, and if they want to come here, let's work with them to get them here. Really appreciate you asking the question.
Thanks, Premier. So as I said at the beginning, time flies. We're about halfway through our time together this evening, but there is still lots of time to participate. So if you're on the phone, you can hit *3 now to be added to the queue to ask your question. And if you're watching online, you can email us at nstownhall@novascotia.ca to ask your question there. Next, we're going to go inside our schools, and we're going to talk to Colleen. Colleen, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Premier. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm wondering about if you're thinking about a plan for reducing some of the pressures on teachers, and not just to take care of teachers, but the idea that if we don't take care of our teachers, we're losing them. They are burning out. They are leaving, quitting, walking away, and finding other things to do. And when they are there, it's really difficult to do all of the things that the government is promising can be done for students when the majority, the lion's share of what's being promised is on the shoulders of teachers to provide. And teachers are being given more and more things to provide, and they want to provide it, but they're being given less and less time to do so. And it's creating work situations that are simply, they're just unsafe work conditions at this point. And which, and then connected to our healthcare, that relays over to people being unwell. So, a simple way to help reduce that, if we could take some of that pressure off.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you for your investment in our kids. I can actually feel the emotion in your voice, and I know how much you put into to our students and to our kids. So I thank you for that. We value what you do. We value our teachers. There's no question that the classrooms are complex. There's lots of needs, and teachers in our school system are asked to do more and more. Like, there's absolutely no question about that. So we do want to support you. We are looking for ways to support you. Minister Drouin has reached out a couple of times, and I don't know. We can maybe be better communicators on this. You may be aware this, might not be, but I mean, there's been a couple of times we've reached out to teachers to get their ideas around what they would do. They're there. They're at the front of these classrooms. So I know I certainly hear from teachers that I know that feel buried under years and years of government policy dreamed up by somebody in Halifax who hasn't been around a classroom like an elected person. So we want to support our teachers, and we've had some good feedback from teachers. We've had a number of pilot projects that are in place right now around the province in different classrooms. That's where people would say, "Hey, why don't we try this?" And we say, "Well, let's try that then." Those include things like more technology resources. They include things like more mental health supports. But we know that there's more work to do. We don't want our teachers burning out. We don't want them to leave the profession and try to find something else to do. We want them at their best for our students. So I know Minister Drouin is happy to work with teachers. So I encourage you to, maybe after this we can really connect you to that feedback area and listen very carefully to your ideas and ways we can support you as you support our students. But I just want to tell you that I absolutely understand the pressures on the education system, and I absolutely know that teachers are the ones who wear that right on their hearts, and how much you care about outcomes for your students and how much you put into them. So I really do have the greatest of respect, and as a government, we want to look for ways we can support you, and we'll do that where we can for sure. I promise you that.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we're going to change topics and chat a bit about the carbon tax. So we've got Paul from Brookfield on the line. Paul, go ahead with your question.
Thanks. Good evening, Mr. Premier. First of all, thanks for taking the time for these town hall type meetings. It's actually quite nice to be able to reach out and speak to our elected representatives like this. So thank you for that. Mr. Premier, as you know, the federal government recently stepped back on the carbon tax for heating oil. And my question is around how the provincial government, our provincial government, and your Atlantic counterparts are going to continue to work on having that relief found on other types of fuels. And, as you know, the carbon tax touches everything, and it's at least partially responsible for some of the inflated prices we see today for groceries and every other thing that we buy. And if we believe the federal government, the carbon tax is meant to be a punitive measure so that less of those emissions are caused. But at the same time, they tell us that it's revenue neutral because they give us back in rebates the same amount. So it's not really punitive. So I believe there are a lot better ways to meet our emission reduction goals than a carbon tax. So interested in your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Paul, for raising this, and we're on the same page, and I think that's the page that most Nova Scotians are on. Our climate is changing. There's no question about that. I mean, we look at what's happened in Nova Scotia just in the past year with hurricane, fires, devastating floods with loss of life. There's no question that our climate is changing. For me, there's also no question that government has a responsibility to do something to preserve our planet for future generations. Government needs to step up, and citizens need to step up, and I think Nova Scotians are willing to do that. And we can do that. We can step up and take a number of steps to preserve our planet. We can do it without a carbon tax. A carbon tax just doesn't work in Nova Scotia for some of the reasons that you mentioned. Nova Scotians, we have to drive. We have to heat our homes. It's just the nature of a rural province. We're not going to put our child or loved one on the back of our bicycle and bicycle off to hockey practice or dance recital. Like, it's not going to happen. We're going to drive. And I think even since the carbon tax has come into place, we've been watching very, very closely the fuel consumption, and it's still increasing. Like, the carbon tax is designed to modify behaviors. It can't be modified in Nova Scotia. We need to drive. We need to heat our homes. So we don't think the carbon tax is the best way to protect the planet. We also don't believe that the rebate is a moneymaker for people. We don't believe that. There are rebates, and the federal government has advanced the position that people. This is a good thing. They make money off it. We don't believe that, and that's kind of a nonsense position anyway. So this week, I guess a couple of things. So this week, the premiers from across the country were here, and at the premiers table, we talked about this, and premiers were united. That the most recent car vote, as the federal government calls it, on the home heating oil, is causing harm, and it's treating one area and one heat source different than others, when in fact every Canadian has to heat their home. So that's a bad thing. We asked the government to address that. And I actually asked the government to go, if the car vote for home heating oil was the first step, just go further and take a second step and just get rid of the carbon tax, because it's not working. It's not going to work. So that's our message to the federal government. So I asked people, talk to your member of parliament about that and make sure they're aware of your feelings on that. I have great concerns about the carbon tax, but definitely we're feeling the impact of it. The carbon tax it impacts the cost of everything, and just the nature of our society is that products get produced and they get moved around, and they get moved around by somebody who has to fuel their vehicle in one way, shape, or form, and that means the carbon tax is impacting the price of everything that ends up on our shelves. So I would say, as premiers, we're united on the fact that the home heating is disadvantaging some Canadians, and that's not fair. We need to have a fairness principle here, and but my position, and this is shared by a lot of Nova Scotians I hear from, and certainly a lot of premiers, is just that the carbon tax it just won't work. That's why in Nova Scotia we invested a lot of time and energy and prepared an alternative plan. Of course, we're not just complaining, we're putting forward solutions. And we went to the federal government and said, carbon tax won't work, but here's something that will work. We talked earlier about the Bay of Fundy and the energy potential there, about the wind potential, greening our grid through these types of initiatives, and having support from the federal government on those initiatives. Much better way to protect our planet for future generations. The carbon tax is just punitive. It doesn't do anything for the environment. Let's actually do something that helps the environment. So I really appreciate Paul that you raised that important question, and we'll all stay on it as premier, and I know other premiers will, and you can as well. Just reach out to your member of parliament and share your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Premier. What's really impressive tonight is that we're really hitting a wide range of topics, and we're going to continue with that theme, and we're going to talk now about rental prices. So we've got Joan from Wolfville on the line. Joan, go ahead with your questions.
Yes,
Premier. I feel that you people are trying to work for everybody in the province, and I'm really concerned of the homeless people and making more homeless people by putting rent up that the landlords can charge another 5% starting the 1st of January. That is going to cause more people that can't afford an apartment. They're going to be homeless. It's going to cause them to not be, if they can't afford that, they're going to not buy the food they should, and they're not going to buy their medications. That is going to put more strain on our health care and our hospitals. And also, I know there's all these apps and things for health care that you can go on, but if you can't afford one of these special phones that you can do all of this stuff with, because you can't afford to buy one, and then you can't afford to, if you do have one, to have the telecom people to be able to pay for all of that. So these things are good, but they're not answering the questions for a lot of people. I appreciate all that you're talking about tonight, and these are some of my big concerns.
Thank you, Joan, and your big concerns are my big concerns as well, for sure. Thank you for your comment off the top, and I do want to just assure you I take these things very personally as your premier. I feel it, and we're working hard on these issues, and they're complicated issues for sure. So I guess what I'd say on the rent situation. So when we came to government, we extended the rent cap, the cap on rents. It was 2%, and it kind of held there. It's caused some problems, to be honest, because I guess what's happened, one of the byproducts of that is, somebody who's in a rental unit, their rental increase is capped at 2%. But if their neighbor moves out and somebody else moves in, then the rent is reset. And what we're seeing is when that happens, sometimes the landlord, who's faced with these same rising costs that everyone else is, all their utility costs are going up, their maintenance costs are going up. So when somebody else moves in, we see that the new rent for that new unit, beside the other one who's still there, is higher, and is sometimes quite a bit higher, because they're having to get from that one unit enough to pay for the other one that's capped. So it is having those types of impacts on people. So we recognize that we have to acknowledge that that's a fact, and it is pricing some people who are seeking new rental units out of the market. So these things are interconnected. So the cap was 2%. It will be 5% over the next 2 years. And I appreciate your comment that even that increase is too much for some people, and we're trying to find that balance between the units. So but I appreciate that they're difficult balances to find. But the real issue is the solution to the housing crisis is more housing. We need more units. The lack of supply is driving up the prices. So the cap is in place. Well, we try to get more housing built. Well, we try to get more affordable units built, and that's why you see us moving so aggressively on some of the legislation we're passing, and right here in Halifax, we're passing legislation that the municipality is not happy about. They're not happy that we're kind of passing legislation which sets more rules so more housing can get built. And there's a number of kind of elements to that legislation. But we're doing it because we want more housing. We want more housing faster. If we build more housing, then we can have more options for people. In the meantime, we did strengthen legislation for tenants. So if they feel they've been treated unfairly The Residential Tenancies Act does provide options for that, and we know that that kicks in when people might think they're getting evicted, so somebody can renovate. There are options and protections for tenants in there. So I guess what I would say is there's real housing pressures around. It is driving rents up. And we're trying to protect through the rental cap. That's 2 and then 5, but we really know that we need more housing built, and that's why we're trying to work so aggressively to get more housing built. And we did this year. We did make the first real significant. I think it's actually the first real. I wouldn't even say first significant. It's the first investment that a provincial government has made in affordable housing, more affordable housing units in over 30 years. So there's some catch up to be done for sure, but we've invested almost $300 million in housing so far. So we know that there's people are concerned. We want everybody to have a safe, affordable place to live, and we do know that it impacts their health, as you say. I agree with you, and I share those concerns 100%. Just back to the app and the technology. The app is an option, and certainly not everyone uses their phones or their apps on their phones. Lots of people do, and quite a few seniors do too. But not everyone does. But it's just an option. There's still the phone lines. There's still other ways to access some of these new services. But the more we can kind of spread the load through the app, through the phone lines, through the in-person stuff, the better off it is for everyone. So, but I take your point that none of it's one size fits all. But I really appreciate your comments and certainly your comments on the rental situation.
Thanks, Premier. We're going to go to our email now. There's a question from Barry. He says, there is a rumor that your government has put a pause on development in Dartmouth Cove. Is this true? And if so, why?
I don't think so. Barry. I guess what I would say is we want development. We want more housing. We want more developments. But there are certain areas where there are challenges, and I think you're probably talking about if I have the right piece of land in Dartmouth, I think it's an area where there is some environmental remediation that's needed, and possibly some flooding concerns that developers and possible, I guess, developers, people that would develop that area have raised. So we're actively working with developers, with the and actually I think some nonprofits as well, to see how we might be able to get that property developed. But any place that there's a pause would only be for environmental reasons or some reason where somebody has flagged something for us. But we're not really a pause government. We're a go fast government, and I think you can see in some of the things we do. We don't always get it perfect, but we do tend to go fast, and we also acknowledge that sometimes when you go fast, you go too fast and you get it wrong. But we've had to do that as well. You may remember my plan to have the non-resident tax. We had to kind of hit the brakes on that one. But certainly on developing certain properties and stuff, we're not. If there's a pause, it's only for those environmental reasons that would have been flagged.
Okay, great. We have time for just one more question, unfortunately. We have a question from Carol. She would like to know a little bit more about the app. Go ahead, Carol, with your question.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Carol.
Okay. Part of it is I don't actually know how to. I've got a phone, but I don't know how to get this app on my phone. I know that probably everybody else knows, but I don't know.
You're probably not alone. But if you have a phone that you have apps on already, then this would be an app that you would download from the App Store. So you can also use your computer to access the app. But so I think maybe it depends on if you have a phone that you have apps on, then you would just go to the App Store, and if you search Your Health NS, this app would show up, and you would just download it like you would any type of other app. And there'd be lots of apps. Some people download travel apps or different games, or different banking apps. They're banking apps, but it would be a place where you would get your app like that. But but you raise a good point. We need to communicate. We need to communicate this out to people. And we are working on a plan to get out into communities and meet with community groups and show them how to get the app and how to use it when they have it downloaded.
Carol, that's a question I'm sure many others are wondering too. So that's great. Great note to end it on. So thank you everyone for tuning in for the last hour. We are very sorry for those of you that we weren't able to get to your question or your comments. If you would like to stay in touch with us, you can email us at nstownhall@novascotia.ca. We do want to hear your ideas, thoughts, and comments. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great night.